They laughed when the homeless man walked into the courtroom. His clothes were tattered, his hair was a mess, and he carried a worn-out bag over his shoulder. The air filled with whispers and muffled snickers. Even the prosecutor couldn't hide a smirk. The man, whose name was Thomas, ignored them all. He walked with a strange confidence, his eyes fixed on the judge's bench. The bailiff stepped forward, ready to escort him out, but Thomas simply handed him a folded piece of paper and said, "For the judge." The bailiff, annoyed, passed it up. Judge Miller, a stern man known for his no-nonsense attitude, unfolded the paper with a sigh of impatience. He expected it to be some rambling nonsense, but as his eyes scanned the words, his expression changed. The color drained from his face. His hand began to tremble slightly. The courtroom, which had been buzzing with mockery, fell silent as everyone noticed the judge's sudden and dramatic shift. He looked up from the paper, his eyes wide with disbelief, and stared at the homeless man. "Thomas," he whispered, his voice cracking with an emotion no one in that room had ever heard from him before. The name hung in the air, thick with unspoken history. The prosecutor, confused, stood up. "Your Honor, is everything all right? Should we have this man removed?" But Judge Miller waved him down, never taking his eyes off Thomas. He slowly rose from his seat, a monumental act for a man who always presided with an iron grip from his chair. "Everyone," he said, his voice now loud and clear, resonating with a mix of shock and something else, reverence. This man is not who you think he is." The suspense in the room was unbearable. Who was this homeless man that could make the unshakable Judge Miller freeze in his tracks? Thomas just stood there, a faint, sad smile on his face. He wasn't just any homeless person who had wandered in off the street. The note in the judge's hand held a secret that connected these two men across decades of silence and separation. The judge cleared his throat, his composure returning, but his eyes were now glistening. 25 years ago, he began, his voice wavering. "I was a young, ambitious lawyer. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. I put an innocent man behind bars to win a case and advance my career." He paused, taking a deep breath. "That man was my partner, my best friend." He then pointed a shaking finger at Thomas. "And this is that man." A collective gasp swept through the courtroom. The laughter had long since died, replaced by stunned silence. The story began to unfold. Thomas, once a brilliant legal mind himself, was framed by a powerful rival. Miller, his own partner, was manipulated and pressured into staying silent, a decision that haunted him every single day of his life. Thomas was wrongfully convicted and served a long sentence. When he was finally released, he had nothing. His family was gone, his reputation destroyed. He ended up on the streets, a ghost of his former self. For years he wandered, lost to the world, while Miller's career soared, his guilt buried deep beneath his judge's robes. The note wasn't a threat. It wasn't a plea for money. It was a simple piece of evidence. A faded photograph of two young men, arms slung around each other, grinning at the camera outside their newly opened law office. On the back, in faded ink, were the words, "Partners for life. Miller and Thompson." Thomas Thompson. That was his name. The name Judge Miller had tried to forget for a quarter of a century. Thomas hadn't come for revenge. He had come because he heard Miller was presiding over a case eerily similar to their own. A young, inexperienced public defender fighting for a client everyone believed was guilty. Thomas looked at the young lawyer, then back at the judge. "I didn't come here for me, Richard," Thomas said, using the judge's first name for the first time in decades. The intimacy of it sent another shockwave through the room. "I came here for him," he said, gesturing to the defendant. "I know what it's like to have the system fail you, to have everyone, even your friends, turn their backs." He looked directly into Miller's soul. "You have a chance to do what you couldn't do all those years ago, to ensure justice is truly served, not just for the powerful, but for everyone." Judge Miller stood frozen, the weight of his past crashing down on him in his own courtroom. The sneering faces of the lawyers and spectators now looked on with a mixture of shame and awe. They had laughed at a man's appearance, completely blind to the story of pain, betrayal, an incredible resilience that stood before them. In that moment, he wasn't Judge Miller, the powerful figurehead of the law. He was just Richard, a man confronted by the ghost of his greatest failure and his greatest friend. He looked at the defendant, Tenna Thomas, and a tear finally escaped, rolling down his cheek. He slammed the gavel down, not with anger, but with a newfound purpose. "This court is in recess," he declared, his voice thick with emotion. He then stepped down from the bench, something he had never done in the middle of a session. He walked directly to Thomas, ignoring everyone else. The two men, one in a pristine robe and the other in rags, stood facing. The years of pain, guilt, and separation melted away. The judge reached out and embraced the homeless man. "I'm so sorry, Tom," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." In the hallowed halls of justice, where people were judged daily, a true judgment had just occurred, and it had nothing to do with the law. It was about humanity, forgiveness, and the chance for redemption. The stories spread like wildfire. Judge Miller postponed the case and launched a full investigation, poring over every detail with the care he had failed to show 25 years prior. He also publicly announced his resignation, stating he could no longer preside over the law until he had made amends for his past. He dedicated his time and resources to helping Thomas, not just to get him off the streets, but to clear his name officially. Together, they reopened Thomas's old case, using the judge's knowledge and Thomas's brilliant, albeit rusty, legal mind. It was a long and arduous battle, but they were partners once again. Finally, the day came when Thomas Thompson was officially exonerated, his name cleared of all wrongdoing. He wasn't just a homeless man anymore. He was a symbol of an imperfect system, but also a testament to the enduring power of truth and friendship. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more incredible stories.